Welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Professor Patricia Kane. She's a professor of law at Santa Clara University. Patricia has been teaching law for over 35 years. She briefly practiced law before she became a professor. She's been a member of the Texas and Iowa bars and provides consulting services to law firms. Patricia is also a frequent speaker relating to tax planning for same-sex couples and has written many tax law review articles and has contributed to books on the subject. Today, we're going to be talking about estate and gift tax problems of same-sex couples. And we want to point out a couple of things. First, many of these problems are shared by unmarried couples. So we'll try to highlight a little bit of that as we go along. Also, though, we want to caution you that we're discussing areas in a very complex area. So this is just a starting point for a bigger discussion. We want you to get qualified legal and tax advice. Also, I'm a California CPA. Patricia is teaching here at University of Santa Clara, which is in California. We're highly concerned with California law as it relates to community property and so forth. California is a community property state. The rules for community property vary from state to state, and also of course, many states are not community property states. So you need to consult with your local attorney and tax advisor related to the laws that apply for you. Okay, so with that, I want to get charging right ahead. We have a lot of material to cover. So for folks who may have seen our previous program related to income tax issues, please forgive us a little bit, but we have to relay some of the groundwork here. And so we're going to be reviewing some of the initial material to get started. So first of all, Patricia, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. So the first issue in question is, what is the Defense of Marriage Act, which I understand is a federal law, and what is its general effect for federal tax law for same-sex couples?
Okay, the Defense of Marriage Act at the federal level, affectionately known as DOMA,
Okay.
D-O-M-A, was passed in 1996 by Congress. There was a threat at that time, there was litigation in the state of Hawaii that many people thought might lead to recognition of same-sex marriage in the state of Hawaii, and then people were afraid that everyone would fly to Hawaii, get married, and come back to the other 49 states and say, we're now married, you have to recognize us as married. For federal tax purposes, the part of DOMA that we are concerned about is the rule that for all federal law purposes, a marriage is only between a man and a woman. So in any federal statute, regulation, ruling, whatever, when marriage or spouse is used, it will not include same-sex spouses.
Okay. So are there any legal challenges pending for DOMA right now?
Yes, the most interesting one, and one that people think might actually be successful, is one that was filed in Boston last March, that is March of the last year. And in that case, there are a group of plaintiffs represented by gay and lesbian advocates and defenders, GLAAD. There are a group of plaintiffs that are challenging various federal rules, including some tax rules.
Okay.
There are at least 3 couples that are claiming they have the right to file jointly because they've been married in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And the challenge is that failure to recognize them, even though they have exactly the same position as opposite-sex married couples in Massachusetts, violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. That it is a denial of their right to equality, equal treatment under the law, to be treated differently from opposite-sex married couples to whom they are exactly similarly situated.
Okay. And just remind us again, the 14th Amendment is?
14th Amendment is equal protection and the Due Process Clause as well. So,
okay.
But the argument is primarily under equal protection. In federal law, there was a case that went up to the Supreme Court in 1996, a case called Romer versus Evans, which struck down an anti-gay law based on equal protection under the 14th Amendment. And that's really the case they are relying on.
Okay. All right. Now, again, we're in California, so we had a brief spell where we allowed marriages in California, and then I believe it was last November or shortly before, effective in November anyway, Proposition 8.
November of 2008.
November of 2008, excuse me. Proposition 8 became effective. And so could you tell us a little bit about Proposition 8 and what the status is of litigation challenging it?
Right. Well, there was a trial challenging Proposition 8. Proposition 8 was the people's use of the initiative power to add a provision to the California Constitution that says only a marriage between a man and a woman shall be valid or recognized in California. Before Proposition 8 and after the Supreme Court of California had ruled in favor of same-sex marriage, there was a period from June until November where same-sex couples could and did get married in California. 18,000 same-sex couples married during that window of opportunity, as I like to think about it. Okay. And then we challenged Proposition 8 in state court, and the state court upheld it. And the minute they upheld it, a suit was announced in federal court challenging Proposition 8 under the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause because it takes away the right, the fundamental right to marry the person of your choice if your sexual orientation happens to be gay or lesbian.
Okay. And so a current case that's involved with this, the one that you're talking about, is Perry versus Schwarzenegger.
Right. It's the case that a lot of people know it as the Ted Olson and David Boies case because they are the high-profile litigators that brought this case. But the name of the case is Perry v. Schwarzenegger. It's in federal district court in San Francisco. The trial just started yesterday. That's January 11th. This is the second day of trial.
January 12th today of 2010. Okay,
right.
Yes.
And so far, you can only witness the trial if you're there in person or in another room in the courthouse, even though they have cameras running, which they might release at some point on YouTube. But right now, any release of that has been blocked. So many of us are talking to people who are there and watching all the live blogging that's going on about what's going on in the case. Right. And if this case were to win, ultimately, and establish a uniform principle that every person, no matter what their sexual orientation is, has the right to marry the person of their choice in every state in the Union, then DOMA, of course, would fall, and we wouldn't have any of the problems that we have today with the tax code.
But if this case was decided against Proposition 8, I mean, eventually it would probably go to the Supreme Court in either case.
I think yes.
Yeah. So, in other words, this fight isn't going to be over for a while.
No, it's a long fight.
But we'll see what happens from here. Okay. So now we just recently had some California legislation that was passed relating to out-of-state marriages of same-sex couples. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. Since the 18,000 couples who got married in California before Proposition 8 took effect are still legally married, it only makes sense to recognize other same-sex couples who got legally married in other jurisdictions. Normally, states recognize marriages from other states. So, but a lot of states won't recognize same-sex marriages from other states because they have strong public policies against that. But at least between June and November of 2008, California did not have a strong public policy against that. In fact, the Constitution supported the right to marry a same-gendered person. So if those marriages were happening elsewhere, it's only correct that they also should be recognized. And since the courts didn't address it, the state legislature enacted a statute that clarifies that people married in Massachusetts before Prop 8, people married in Canada, when they're in California, they will be recognized as legally married.
Right.